Be Your Best You, the Passionate to Purpose podcast with David Delaney. Good morning and welcome. It's great to have you here on this episode of Be Your Best You. Today, we talk to two women who have followed their dreams, one with a passion for art, the other with a passion for photography. Let's find out what happens when these two forces join together. Joining us this morning, Ciara Drennan and Pauline McEvoy from Heyday Studios. So good morning, Ciara. Good morning, Pauline. You're very, very welcome to this episode of our podcast.
Good morning, Dave.
Morning, Dave.
And this is going to be a challenge in itself because this is our first podcast that we have three people on the call. So it's quite difficult. So just bear with us. So first, I'm going to ask Ciara, I'm going to start with you just a little bit. I suppose people will know you guys for Heyday. And that Heyday is a culmination of your passion along with yourself and your colleague Pauline. So, yeah. Ciara, tell me a little bit about your journey in the last couple of years and on the path to Heyday and of course about Heyday itself.
Okay, people I suppose, Dave, know me as a photographer based in Laois. And in particular I do a lot of newborn photography and family photography. So I started out traveling to people's homes, and then I was offered to share a bit of studio space over in Tullamore. And myself and Pauline knew each other. We were acquaintances, good acquaintances, I suppose. And I met Pauline one evening over at the Port Laois Camera Club. And for some reason, I asked her to come over. Would she come over to Tullamore with me one day to help me with set design and that, because I wouldn't be great putting colours together and her being the artist. And she came over on a day when I had a session. And that was how many years ago, Pauline?
4 or 5 this month.
Yeah, it is actually this month.
Yeah.
4 years ago. And we've been working together ever since, to be honest with you.
Okay. So photography has always been your passion. It's always been the photography side of things that you would have.
Well, no, it's in the last 10 years. I fell into it.
Okay.
Yeah. Walked into a camera shop in Sligo one day about 10 years ago and bought a camera, and that was it. Taught myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Pauline, tell me a little bit about the journey that you found yourself on, which resulted in Heyday. Ciara's already given a little bit of away, being the artist, telling us about you being the artist. So tell us yourself how it's all come about.
I suppose it's a long and convoluted journey. I actually worked in manufacturing for many, many years. So very, very different type of business. And then I worked in kind of training and coaching for about 10 years. So I'm obviously very old. But I suppose all my life I've painted. I don't remember a time in my life when I didn't paint. And I suppose I got to a stage in my life, where it was quieter. The kids were grown up, they were gone. So I had more time. I felt at that stage, and I don't have to work quite as hard. Little did I know what was coming. But yeah, I took that invitation of Ciara's to go over to help her with set design. And actually, within the very first session, I think I started handing her stuff to help with the setup, with the actual photo shoot. And I've never left since.
And that was someone else's studio that you guys were working in at the time. Is that right?
Yeah.
So what happened? When did the moment come? Like bang! We're going to do this for ourselves. When did that happen?
Do you want to answer that, Ciara?
Yeah, it was weird. We were traveling over and back together. Any day that we had a session, so this gorgeous friendship really started developing, and it was about year and a half after we started together, wasn't it? And Pauline texted me. We're great at texting. We don't ring each other a lot, but we text almost every day. And Pauline texted and said, "Can I pop down for a coffee?" And I suppose I was starting to think of, I wanted to move back closer to Portlaoise and that, 'cause my two boys are in school, and just to be a bit closer to home. And she arrived down to the house for a coffee. This was back in the day when we could still have friends in the house for coffee. And she had a mad notion that was beginning to develop in her mind, and I had a mad notion that was developing in my mind. And we said, what about if we tried to get a room somewhere in Portlaoise that Pauline could run her art classes and I could do the photography. So that's how it started. We started looking for a room to rent in Portlaoise, and we ended up with these gorgeous studios that I'm sitting in this morning.
Right.
Recording. Yeah.
Pauline, tell me, the name is fairly unique, Heyday Studios. Tell me how that landed into your possession or your being, or tell me a little about that.
I think it's probably one of the nicest stories of our business, really, is that. So I suppose one of the things that Ciara and I also loved is music. I mean, Ciara does some music photography as well, and I suppose I'm a bit older than Ciara, so I used to say to her, I missed the 90s because I was rearing kids. So Ciara reintroduced me to a lot of music from the 90s and thereabouts. And so it was, it was something that we had a project going called When the Artist Met the Photographer, and it was all about with putting the songs that meant a lot to us together into a playlist, and we were working on art projects around that. But I suppose one of the artists that was on that playlist was Mick Christopher, who wrote the song Heyday. And Ciara and I went up around the time, or maybe the year before we started the studio, we went up to the launch of, I believe it was the vinyl version of
it was a beautiful initiative that they were doing in Dublin at the time. It was a listening party where you would actually go and listen to an LP from start to finish, right? Very old-fashioned, sitting in this gorgeous room. There wouldn't be any chat in between. It sounds a little bit heavy going, but it was just a really, really lovely experience. If you're into your music, and I suppose with an artist like Mick, he played a big part in my life, his music. And we went up. That was the year that we were decided on, Pauline.
Yeah, it was. And the album, just in case anyone doesn't know, is Skylarking. And I had never heard that album from start to finish. I suppose being in what was really, in essence, a darkened room, and you weren't to speak, you just had to listen. And I don't think I've ever listened as intently to a piece of music in my life, because there was no distractions. And it was just beautiful. The album is beautiful from start to finish. And there's quite a lot of songs in that album that are now meaningful to me. But Heyday, I suppose also Heyday is it's a happy word. We talk about let this part of our career be our heyday. Heyday meaning, the part of your life where you soar, where you're just doing everything well and it all falls into place. That was the sentiment behind it. And so it made sense. The word made sense. The song made sense. And I think it just, it kind of summed up probably a lot of what Ciara and I, and a lot of our friendship. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. It's interesting because some of the questions, when we're interviewing some of the people on the podcast, they haven't got a clue. They hate that question. What's your favorite song? So you guys have just answered all of that quite easily. So thank you. Ciara, what did you want to be when you grew up?
What didn't I want to be, Dave? Would you believe it? I wanted to be a show jumper.
Okay.
When I was younger, I used to do a lot of horse riding and show jumping locally up in Sligo, which is where I'm from originally. So I wanted to be a show jumper, and in particular a show jumper in the army. Yeah.
And would you still do it if it happened tomorrow that there was an envelope given to you with that career in it and an opportunity to pursue it? Would you still do it?
Would I still do it? No.
Okay.
I have to say I'm one of the lucky ones. I love doing what I'm doing.
Okay.
I
Excellent.
couldn't do anything else now. I don't know, P, are you the same? I hope you're the same.
Oh God, yeah. Well, I don't want to be a show jumper anyway.
So we
So
are.
was there something? Was there something in your life, Pauline, that you always wanted to be?
What did I want to be?
Yeah.
I suppose I don't ever really remember wanting to any career in particular, but I was fascinated by ballet dancers and figure skaters and gymnasts. I loved watching the movement of in dance, I suppose, and the movement of the human body. I just was always fascinated by it. Yeah, loved all that. Wished I could do all that or whatever, but there was very few chances, shall we say, for any of that. I did the Irish dance, and that was it.
Yeah, that was a good step towards it. In terms of if someone is out there at the moment listening to you guys, but because you've done what a lot of people want to do, it's like, okay, I have an idea, I'm chasing a passion, I'm following my dream. If someone's out there thinking, I can't do that, okay, and I'm stuck in this 9-to-5 job, or I'm stuck in this, thing that I don't like doing every day, but I have to, or they feel they have to. Pauline, I'll start with you. What would you say to that person who is thinking of taking that career jump and just has that feeling of dread or feeling of, what might or might not happen? What would you say to someone who's in that position?
Well, I suppose I'll speak from my own experience. I've done that. Like, I jumped from the 9-to-5 job, the permanent job. I did it probably gradually because I wasn't that brave. I wasn't brave to just literally walk out of a job and with a dream. I'm not that brave, but at the same time, I think, the courage enough that I knew I couldn't live my life that way anymore, that I felt like I was dying inside a little bit. So I did it gradually, as in I retrained, I started doing pursuing the other things part-time, until they grew, for me then, when I actually left the job, it was a case of, it felt like a big step, but it didn't feel like jumping off a cliff. So I did my prep work, and I worked at it. I now look back at it and think I also was incredibly lucky. I met wonderful people along the way, whether it was when I started in the training business and had my own business there, or when I met Ciara. It was just like things unfolded for me as I was ready for them. And while I may have, even in my 20s, had a dream of painting, of teaching, I actually, I'd say in my 30s, wrote a letter to myself about having a studio where I made stuff, where I sold stuff, where there was paintings hanging on the wall, etc. And it's amazing that it has all come to fruition. So to that person who's thinking about it, I'd say you have to go with your gut. Don't die with your music inside. That was my motto. Be brave, but put in the groundwork, because it is a bit scary. It is scary going to be self-employed, from being from the paycheck landing into your bank account. It is scary, but it was less scary than staying.
Okay. And Ciara, you stood outside that camera shop 10 years ago in Sligo, and you are one of these people who said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go in to the camera shop. So again, I'll ask the question to the person that's standing outside the camera shop, or outside that music store, or outside that place to go in to buy that pen to write that book, or whatever their dream is. What would you say to them?
I'd say do it. I suppose at the time I had no idea this is where I was going to end up. But Pauline's right, it is scary. I didn't leave the job I was in to carry on to focus on photography. At the time, it was something that grew organically alongside. I took a career break to look after my children. They were young at the time. It's 10 years ago now. And so this passion kind of grew alongside looking after the kids at home and that. And I suppose I left a job, I left a very secure, I left a full-time, permanent, pensionable, I was set for life. But something was telling me it wasn't for me, that I needed to be at home with my children at the time. And all of this just grew organically. So I wasn't going looking to change careers at the time. Look, it's taken that massive step. And I think sometimes in life, and Pauline and I have spoken about this a lot as well, you have to be brave. And it's very, very difficult to take that step. But listen to your gut. I think I'm looking at a little painting that Pauline did in front of me that says, "The wise woman deep inside always knows the answer. Listen." So that's something that I look at every day and try and follow. Yeah.
Okay. Pauline, tell me, what app has changed your life in the last 10 years? What app?
It's a random question.
That's a random question. We get all serious, there's like, drop that in there.
You know what? Immediately what came to my mind was WhatsApp.
Okay.
But I think it's the video call. It's being able, I have a daughter who doesn't live in Ireland, so to be able to see her face and sit down and have a chat with her, that was something of science fiction when I was a kid. I mean, it was pure science fiction. So to be able to sit here and look at the two of you and actually have a chat and see your reaction, and it is different than just audio. Yeah, it is.
And Ciara, I suppose to the same question, technology plays a big part in your work, probably a little bit more than Pauline, because people can express on canvas, and technology, while it can help in that, technology is probably something that's more in photography. I mean, you see people coloring in old photos and stuff like that, and I'll ask your opinion on that in a second. But what app has changed? What app has changed your life in the last 10 years?
You have to go for the most obvious one, to be honest. That's the big one, Facebook. Which I know the youngsters now, we're considered old fogies using Facebook, according to my teenagers.
Oh, we make it on TikTok.
Oh, for fuck's sake. So keep an eye out for the Heyday TikTok coming up soon. I'm going to set that one up. Yeah, Facebook. And you know what I actually loved about Facebook? I joined it back in 2007, like when it was starting out. I was able to reconnect with friends from the past and people I had gone to college with, and that we had lost contacts. We didn't have mobile phones and all of that back in the day.
Okay.
That was what I initially loved about Facebook, was that reconnection. And I suppose now it's a very important work tool and business tool and creativity tool for me as well. Yeah.
So from a creativity and just on the question of technology, the likes of people coloring in old photos, like what's your creative and professional opinion on that?
I'm not going to give a professional opinion on it. I'll go a personal opinion.
Okay.
I do restore old photos, right? And I have done them for other people, and I've done a lot of my own family ones. I don't like the colorizing of them.
Okay.
Right.
So it's personal taste is what I'm hearing. It's down to
personal taste, and I appreciate the art that goes into them and the work that goes into them. But personally, I prefer to keep, which kind of goes against a lot of my own creative photography, where I can do some quite bizarre things. But I prefer to keep the old photos.
Okay. And from an artist's point of view, Pauline, from the actual, the paintings and the drawings, is technology helpful in any way or hindering, as we mentioned TikTok there? I mean, kids nowadays want to spend time creating, and they're content creators, and that's the new thing. They want to be YouTubers when they grow up, or I want to be TikToker. So they are creating. So is technology actually affecting young people, for example? And actually, they're not. Are they picking up pens? Are they picking up crayons? How is technology either helping or indeed hindering that side of the creative process?
I think there's room for both. I mean, even I have taught kids and done kid art classes for kids, and they still love it, and they go home and they follow stuff on YouTube or whatever as well. So there's definitely room for both. Even myself, like a couple of years ago, I spent a lot of time learning how to digitally paint, which was as excruciating a process as more than learning to paint with actual paints. But I suppose it was a goal I set myself, and I enjoy a challenge and I enjoy learning. So I'd never say apps don't have a place. Like I continually trying to learn something. So I do an online course at the moment with art as well. And they use apps to abstract things, to do this, to do that. So yeah, I mean, there's room for both. Yeah, I'm not all down. My thing with the kids, I don't know enough. My kids are older now. They're women. They're not kids. I would love to think that it's the creativity of creating the content that's their motivator. That's what I'd love to think, rather than it's that they want to be famous. I think if it's just I want to be famous, it's not. I don't think it's good for them. But that's just my opinion.
Okay. Ciara, what does success look like to you?
What does success look like to me? Success is, gosh, do you know what? I'm happy in what I'm doing, Dave. Do you know, I'm very happy in coming into Heyday Studios every day. We've some fabulous families that come into us, and that to me is success. The studio is in normal times very, very busy. But more importantly, the two of us, we enjoy coming in every day.
And
who love what we were doing.
Pauline, who inspires you? Why?
It's a tricky question, and I could have answered this a lot quicker when I was younger. I would have picked someone like Georgia O'Keeffe as being an artist who kind of broke the mold back in the day, when female artists didn't do that very often. I would have picked someone like Erin Brockovich, who I thought was a ballsy woman who had the courage to keep going at something against adversity. I find as I get older, Dave, it's I suppose I change. I'm changing that. I suppose I internalize a little bit more. I don't really look. If you ask me, like, whose life would who would I want to be? There's nobody I want to be bar me, because I'd look at anybody's life and I'd say, oh, that bit's nice and that bit's nice, but there's not one other person's life that I would say, oh, I'll take all of that, thank you very much. So I suppose that kind of answers two questions to me: is who inspires me depends on every different aspects of different people inspire me. And in general, success pretty much looks like where my life is. Success is not worrying, kind of being comfortable in your own skin.
So for balance, because I know you two can get quite competitive, for balance, Ciara, who inspires you and why?
It's a healthy competition.
You have to make sure everyone gets asked the same questions.
What's the question?
Yes, Ciara, who inspires you and why?
Oh, Dave. Do you know what? A bit like Pauline, at different stages in life, I think we'd be saying different people. I'm not going to say anyone famous or well known. I think there's been a lot of people have struggled this last year, and I've seen a few of the personal stories and hearing a few of the personal stories, and people just keep going. And a lot of my friends have inspired me this year with
Excellent. So we have come to time. So I just want to thank Ciara Drennan and Pauline McEvoy from Heyday Studios. Ladies, thank you very, very much for joining us this morning. And that's it for another week. Thanks for joining us this morning, and do join us next time on Be Your Best You. Have a good week.